Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It's just me, myself, and I. I love that song. They are just recently started to be on Apple Music. So happy for De La Soul. And speaking of De La Soul, Diddy is going to court against a longtime spirits partner whom the rap star says discriminated against Ciroc, Vodka, and DeLeon tequila brands. We're going to talk about Diddy's lawsuit. Also, there are so many hip hop stars who use that name Lil Wayne, Lil Tyke, Lil whatever. But we got a really good story this morning about Lil Durk. We'll share that story. And an airline fight's gone wild. Look, I don't want none of that nonsense when I'm on the plane. Let me tell you right now, we are not doing it. But what happened with a guy who disrespected what he called a quote, big black woman? We're going to discuss that as well. And the man who, in my opinion, is either the best or second best baseball player in history will be the subject of an upcoming HBO documentary. Yes, let me save you the suspense. Barry Bonds' career will be in the spotlight, and I am totally here for it. I think Barry Bonds is either the reason I say either the best or the second best, because I'm still battling as to whether he or Willie Mays is the greatest. One of those two is the greatest. The other one is the second greatest. Or maybe they just co-pilots of being the greatest. But we're gonna check that out, and I'll run some important stats about the greatest home run hitter, at least of all time, as we talk about Barry Bonds. But first, Diddy is in court. The rapper, producer, and entrepreneur Sean Diddy Combs sued Diageo. Is that how you say it? Diageo. Wednesday, saying the spirits company didn't make promised investments in his vodka and tequila brands and treated them as inferior urban products. The lawsuit filed with the New York Supreme Court in Manhattan says that the company starved Combs' Ciroc Vodka and DeLeon tequila brands of resources, even as it showered attention on other celebrity brands. Diageo bought actor George Clooney's tequila brand for $1 billion in 2017, for example. Diddy said that the leadership of that company told him race was one of the reasons it limited distribution to urban neighborhoods. He was also told that some of that company's leaders resented him for, quote, making too much money. This is what the lawsuit says. And it goes on to quote Diddy, cloaking itself in the language of diversity and equity is good for Diageo's business, but it is a lie. While Diageo may conspicuously include images of its Black partners in advertising materials and press releases, its words only provide the illusion of inclusion. Puffy's relationship goes back with Diageo to 2007 when that London based company, which owns more than 200 brands, including Guinness's beer and Tanqueray gin, approached Puffy about Ciroc. In a statement, Diageo denied the claims. They say this is a business dispute, and we are saddened that Mr. Combs has chosen to recast this matter as anything other than that. While we respect Mr. Combs as an artist and entrepreneur, his allegations lack merit, and we are confident the facts will show that he has been treated fairly. Diddy in the lawsuit says he intends to seek billions, not millions, or tens of millions, or hundreds of millions, but Diddy wants billions of dollars in damages. Um, Power 90. See, this is what happens when we talk about Diddy or Diddy is talked about, I should say, because this is Power 96 says that lawsuit sounds like how Diddy treats his artists. He says, oops, I said the quiet part out loud. Mm, we move on. We move on to Lil Durk. Now I gotta tell you, until recently, I didn't really know much about Lil Durk because there's so many Lils. Lil this, Lil that, Lil Kim, Lil that's Lil Kim is the original though, right? She's the original Lil. There's the Lil Waynes and all that stuff. Austin's out in the West Coast. He says Diddy is dizzy. and and Michelle's Delicious Delight says, Good morning. Uh, good morning, Michelle's Delicious Delights. Let it be known, brought to you by Michelle's Delicious Delights. Last month, a social media user named Adventures with Eli shared a video that went viral on TikTok. In the clip, the young man was walking down a Los Angeles street one night when he came upon an unhoused man who had a projector set up in his tent. As Eli got closer, he showed his followers that the individual was watching Lil Durk's All My Life music video. Well, uh, I can't be getting distracted. Monique Daniels says Diddy is a cornball. But nonetheless, over 7 million views later, Lil Durk managed to find the crafty fan and pay him a visit. Well, the other night, the Chicago native went live on Instagram to show the encounter. He says, I want to do something real special out of the kindness of my heart, right? So he goes on to say, the guy who was playing All My Life in the tent, I found him. I'm going to pull up on him. I got him a hotel room. You never know what people are going through, he said. Dirk exited a vehicle and introduced himself to the man who identified himself as Pedro. And while speaking with the Los Angeles resident, the rapper let him know that he footed the bill for a 30-day hotel stay and gave him a new cell phone, gift cards, and cash. He also asked for Pedro's permission before showing him on camera. And he says, This is how you do it. Get permission and give blessings. Super dope. Glad to see positivity on this app. One person tweeted in response to the clip. Another added, This could be life changing for that man. Now, some people say that Dirk should not have broadcasted, but you know what? That type of act of kindness, I think most would agree that it deserves a little light. More people in that position can be doing more because a lot of times we look at most of the time we look at the politicians and the mayors, the congress people, senators, etc., the president for the homeless situation. Well, those with means can help too. And what Lil Durk did appeared to have been a great act of kindness. Put the man in a hotel for 30 days, um, gave him money, gift cards. Obviously, he's able to feed him at least for a while. A really nice story for a Friday morning. At least I thought. Let me see if Barrington thinks differently. He's talking about Diddy still. Come on, Barrington, give me something else. Give me something on Lil Durk, what he did. But that was really cool. Nice video. He got the man's permission, and as he said himself, so there you go. He got the man's permission to film this encounter. And I think what it does is give others some sort of hope as well. But this was genuine. The man was listening to. He appreciate the fact that this unhoused man was listening in his tent to his music. That's what artists that he's now a role model for other artists. If you ask me, cool gesture, gesture. Is it gesture or gesture? By Lil Durk, says Barrington Salmon. See, nothing for you to curse about, Barrington. Nonetheless, we we move on. But someone wrote, this could be life changing for that man. Absolutely, absolutely. At least he got a sense of being cared for. Can only imagine being out in the street like that, living on the streets. You, many probably feel like, who cares? Well, Lil Durk showed some care here. So there was a fight uh, in her flight. A woman went, there was fight, I should say, in her flight. A woman went viral after posting a series of videos showing a tense confrontation with a passenger sitting next to her on a 4-hour flight from Puerto Rico to Atlanta. The video
You know what? I wasn't gonna say
posted on
anything.
TikTok. Here
I
you go.
wasn't gonna say anything, but I decided I want you to feel as uncomfortable as I do, and I want you to know that I saw your text messages, and I think you're disgusting.
What text message?
You know exactly what I'm
Oh,
talking about. I'm not.
yeah.
I'm not gonna repeat it because everybody doesn't need to know, but I want you to know that I know. I saw you, and I think that you're disgusting. You don't have anything to say to that, right?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And speaking of, yeah,
Yeah.
you should. And speaking of airlines weeding people out, maybe if they raise prices, you know, maybe you wouldn't be able to afford to sit with your family. That way, they don't have to sit next to black people. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah. You're not. You don't have to be sorry to me. You're sorry because I saw it.
Yeah.
But I want you to feel as uncomfortable as I do sitting next to you.
Okay, I am.
Uh huh. You should be.
Wow. So we heard that, right? So what he texted, he was texting apparently his family members, or member at least, and he was saying that he was sitting next to this quote big black woman, and she saw the text, and how she handled that was really interesting because she didn't yell or make a scene, and she in fact she told him that everyone didn't have to know. That was between them. And she kind of just pushed aside his apology because, like she said, "You're sorry because I saw you." That post, the content creator who posted it, Taila, Taila, Rouse, it's been viewed 20 million times as of a couple of days ago. And she went on to say she was sitting next to this racist on her 4-hour flight. And she says, "Yes, I could have minded my own business, but why should I let him slide?" She said she witnessed the man next to her complaining over text to his family that he had to sit next to this big black woman. And she says, "I wasn't going to say anything, but she wanted him to feel as uncomfortable as he made her feel." Um, what do you say about that? I mean, his argument is going to be, or has been, well, that's his private thoughts, his private texts, but he kind of made them public, right? He didn't shield them that good anyway. If he was trying to shield them, he didn't shield them that well. So she was able to see them. And not only that, what led her to peeking over to see those texts? His body language, like she was some sort of alien. And so she took um, umbrage. Barrington's, what did he call me yesterday? He called me something yesterday, so I'm using the word umbrage. So she took umbrage with this guy, and she let him know exactly uh, how she felt and that he was caught. And so she said also the other thing that she mentioned too. She said that he and his family, whoever he was texting with, were complaining that they were forced to sit next to black people and gay people, and that he hopes airfare uh, for prices continues to rise so that they can quote weed out those who can't afford it. This is what he texted. So he's anti-black, anti-gay. Um, he doesn't want you to be able to afford it to fly. Yeah, oh, man, I got news for you, dude. Power 96 says another upset mayonnaise person got exposed. Hopefully his face goes viral too. Yeah, we didn't see his face at all, which that's the unfortunate part. People getting fired. How about the guy who pulled the wig off the black woman, the lawyer? This guy's a lawyer. He pulled the wig off her head like it's some sort of joke. But you don't mess with black women's hair. I heard a conversation just the other day. Um, some friends were having, and they were talking about their hair, and um, Funny, funniest, funniest thing. So there's a friend, a couple who is interracial couple. He's white, she's black, and he was he had me in stitches. He's talking about when he was living in Puerto Rico. He you know thought this one person he saw. He's like, wow, she had her hair up one day, she had it down the next. He's like, man, black women can do so much with their hair. His wife, who is black, said, yes, we can. We buy our hair. In fact, he said they've been married several years now, got a wonderful, beautiful child. Uh, he said, we're still paying for the wedding hair. They got hair in the mail, hair everywhere. And believe me, I have a wife and I got 4 girls, so I know what that's like. But nonetheless, this guy has some issues. Dr. Nicole says it's a shame, but it's how they think. And we see it's also how they are still spreading it to the next generation, shaking my head. And that's the thing, too, because again, this type of hate, this type of intolerance is taught. It is, it is taught, it is learned. And so they are indeed passing it on to the next generation. At least they're trying to, right? Mm, mm, mm. But the lawyer, going back to the lawyer who snatched the, they did plaster his face online and in fact I saw his work ID and everything. They fired him. You got dude, you lost your job because of some stupid act. Uh, just a random woman. She's walking down the street and you snatch her wig off. Wow. This is what happened. I'll tell you, when I'm flying, I saw a video. The late great Bernie Mac. He's he says he don't want nobody doing when he flying. He said, check the person next to him. He said, eat your peanuts, have your little Pepsi or whatever you're drinking. Don't be looking down at your socks. Don't be looking around. Go to sleep. That's that. Keep it peaceful. Keep it peaceful. And speaking of black women, before we move on, I saw this. Greer sent me this on Instagram, and this, if a one picture is worth 1,000 words, this got to be worth 1,000,000. So just to give you context, that is a congresswoman in Louisiana. She's walking. You see who's walking behind her, right? An entire army, basically, of her friends and family. That guy right there, he's another congressman. The day before, he attacked her. He put his hands in her face, called out of her name, and this is her response. And so this is her, I wish a person would response. I saw that. Oh my goodness. You love to see it. You love to see it. That congressperson, and I don't have his name. We just put his face up there, but that congressperson had nothing to say, as you can imagine. There he goes, State Senator Stuart Cathy Jr. had nothing to say. Look at that. You talk about a show of force. That kind of reminded me of that scene from Malcolm X. Y'all know the scene I'm talking about. Go in the police station, and they talk about the cops tell me you're not gonna see this particular prisoner. Malcolm said, take a look outside. I ain't leaving until we see that this brother is okay. Take a look outside. They looked outside. Oh yeah. And Dr. Nicole said, how come he didn't lose his job? Shaking my head. Yeah, you just can't. Unfortunately, you just can't remove elected officials like that. Well, they did it to the Justins, right? In Tennessee. So, but anyway, I just thought, wow, how powerful was that scene right there? She was not playing. Power 96 says, yes, my people showed up and showed out in Baton Rouge. Stuart Cathy is another David Duke. He was quiet as a church mouse yesterday when they rolled up. I bet he was. I bet he was. He probably had to use the bathroom a few times. As we move on, so because it's Friday, it's Friday. We don't want to be too heavy. Um, HBO and words. Barrington got Barrington. You're slow to the draw, Barrington. I've already started the next story. He calls him a punk, among other things. Um, HBO and Words Pictures have launched production on a documentary about Barry Bonds. They say one of baseball's greatest players. I say the greatest, if not, he's the second greatest. The other one is Willie Mays. Um, and I'll tell you why I say that momentarily. But one of the most polarizing figures in all of professional sports is Barry Bonds. The untitled film is being directed by Keith McQuarter. By what he's done by whatever means necessary, the Times of Godfather of Harlem, and it's being executive produced by Oscar winner Ezra Edelman, who did OJ, Made in America. But this is from the creators of 30 for 30, a series, a ESPN series that has really, really gotten a lot of people love it. People love the series. They did the series. I'm gonna choke on this. The Last Dance. But the untitled HBO sports documentary will tell the story of Barry Bonds' baseball single season and all-time home run king from his beginnings as the son of all-star Bobby Bonds. Some might remember the late Bobby Bonds. He played for the New York Yankees. He played for the Giants. Great all-around player was Bobby Bonds. And of course, Barry is the godson of Willie Mays. Willie Mays, perhaps the greatest. Now, Willie Mays ended his career with 666 home runs. And of course, everyone says Babe Ruth was the greatest, 714 home runs. Barry Bonds actually had 762. But here's why Willie Mays is perhaps the greatest and why Bonds is probably perhaps the greatest. Again, it's a thing with me. But 660s Barrington. Barrington Salmon to the rescue. He mentions Josh Gibson. But Willie Mays played at the old Polo Grounds in New York during his career. Perhaps it's tougher to hit a home run in the Polo Grounds than Yellowstone Park. I mean, it's that place was where home runs went to die. And then when the Giants moved to San Francisco, it was Candlestick Park, another place where it was almost impossible to hit home runs. And then Willie ended his career as a member of the New York Mets. He played his last 2 years at Shea Stadium, which at that time was also one of those places where home runs went to die. You just needed to connect like nobody else to hit a home run at those stadiums. And he wound up with 660. Also, spacious outfields. And Willie Mays played center field, perhaps the toughest position in baseball, and played it like no other. Remember, he made the basket catch a thing. Made everything look so easy. He stole bases. He hit for power. He hit for average. He was better than Babe Ruth by far. Willie Mays was by far. End of story. I will argue with anybody on that. Now comes Barry Bonds. And I remember Barry Bonds was a rookie. I was speaking of Shea Stadium. I saw Barry Bonds play against the Mets. And I remember a particular June is almost the anniversary. June 2000, not 2000, 1987. Doc Gooden had returned from basically a suspension. He was at a rehab center in New York, Smithers Institute, for a couple of months as he dealt with an addiction. came back to pitch, and the first guy he faced was a young, skinny Barry Bonds, who was batting leadoff for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Struck Bonds out. Um, but I digress because I love that little bit of history because I was there to watch it. But Barry Bonds went on to just be this extraordinary Pittsburgh Pirate. Then he went on to the San Francisco Giants, where um, he was a perennial All Star, a perennial MVP, won 7 MVP awards. Then came Mark McGuire's home run battle with Sammy Sosa, and that was what really set off the steroid era in baseball. Barry bulked up. He didn't need to. At that point in his career, Barry had already done something that will probably never be done again. 500. He had surpassed 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. No other player in the history of the game comes close to that. 500 home runs, 500 stolen bases. I think who I can't think of his name. All of a sudden, it's escaping me. Has over 500 home. Someone else has over 500 home runs, but they only have like 200 and some odd stolen bases. Just to give you an idea of that feat, for over 500 home runs, 500 stolen bases. But Barry Bonds also hit for average as well. Now, here comes the steroid part. So he does break the record of Babe Ruth's record, Hank Aaron's record, um, home runs, not only as a career, but in a single season. He hit 72 home runs in a single season. That was when the steroids, he was alleged to have taken steroids. Now, the government went after Barry Bonds, and they went after him hard. And so the charge that they ended up with was perjury. Well, Barry Bonds was acquitted. He's always maintained that he did not take steroids. Hey, people will believe what they will believe, whether he took steroids or not. Steroids, here's the other part of it. They say it makes you stronger, but it doesn't give you that great bat to ball, that eye contact that it takes, that concentrate. It doesn't give you that. This guy was a phenomenal left fielder, a unparalleled home run hitter, and um, also hit for a very high average. The only knock on Barry Bonds is that he never won a World Series. 73 home runs in a single season. Look at Barrington correcting me again, and Barry's my guy. He's my guy. Um, and 2011, the government came back after Barry Bonds. They couldn't get him before. And this time he was convicted of obstruction of justice in connection to an inquiry on this so-called steroid lab, the Balco lab out in Northern California. And so Barry Bonds it was linked by that conviction. They went after him to make sure that people understood or people believe that he took steroids. That's a debate that people will have forever. And here's the other part of it. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Look at these numbers. His career WAR, wins above replacement, 162.8. 162.8. No one comes close. He had 2,935 hits. Because he was blackballed, and no one would sign him toward the end of his career. He didn't reach 3,000 hits, but he had 762, as Barrington said, home runs. Um, he had a lifetime career batting average of 298, scored 2,227 runs. Is that, yeah, no, he knocked in 2,227 runs. He ended his career with 514 stolen bases and a slugging percentage of 606. an on base percentage of 444. Just to give you an idea for those who may not know, an on base percentage of 444, that means he got on base 44% of the time. The average is 30%. The average is 30%. Slugging of 607. The average slugging percentage in baseball is just over 500. Barry Bonds was far and away, head and shoulders above. They talk about Mike Trout, and now they have the Japanese sensation, Shohei Ohtani, but none of them. No, Barry Bonds was walked. Again, here's another example of Barry Bonds' greatness. Bases loaded. He's coming to bat. Now, if he walks, that means a run scores. Well, he was intentionally walked with the bases loaded several times. That means that the other team said, we might as well let one run score, because if we pitch to him, 4 runs will probably score. This is how much of a beast Barry Bonds was. The greatest player next to Willie Mays, if not better than Willie Mays. Him and Willie Mays very close. They have remained close throughout Barry's life. And I'm sure that's a great conversation right there between those two. I'd love to be in the room with those two. Of course, the great Willie Mays is now in his 90s. But wow, Barry Bonds. So, am I a fan of Barry Bonds? Can you tell? Can you tell? Always have been. Rooted for him. When they lost to the Angels in the World Series, the Giants did. Dusty Baker was the manager too, so there was a twofold reason I wanted them to win the World Series. They had it, and then it slipped away from them. But anyway, that's my story. Barry Bonds documentary. They're doing several documentaries. We reported earlier this year that they're working on the Serena Williams documentary. We're going to work on a documentary on Barrington as well. See how that turns out. But I'll be waiting and watching and see if they treat this with the justice it should be, which is Barry Bonds should be a Hall of Fame. He should be at his plaque should top the Hall of Fame. Him and Willie Mays' plaque Willie Mays is in the Hall of Fame, but their plaque should be above everyone else's. By far, the 2 greatest players in the history of that sport. And that's one sport that I've watched all the time. And I know my stuff, except for how many home runs Barry Bonds hit in a single season, according to Barrington. But Barry Bonds, the greatest. They're doing a documentary. Look for it. Looks like it'll be later this year. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Another week in the books. June has officially begun. It's Black Music Appreciation Month. Remember that as we move forward through this month. And should be a good weekend. Weather is good everywhere in the country. There's no natural disasters going on in this country right now. So have fun. Enjoy the weekend. And we will see you next week on Let It Be Known.